Oh my God.
Hold on.
Wow.
So when an initiate had to ride the goat, everybody else would sit around the lodge room and have a big belly laugh. And if you rode the goat, then you were in with the clique. This was your initiation. And the idea is that maybe you brought more people in because, you know, there wasn't a lot of entertainment in those days. And this was it.
This jailbreak guy pushing me.
I know. I don't understand why there's a prison guy doing it.
Carny folk.
Totally carny folk. And we're all the rubes, right? This is, and this is from the advertisement. This is wheel goat with several new features added, which make it a much more exciting stunt. See the two small wheels? These enable the attendant to coast the Ferris wheel on the floor with the candidate right side up. He's blindfolded, of course. About the time the candidate has relaxed and has kidded himself into believing that he is to enjoy the smooth ride, over he goes, right on his head. The firing of a blank cartridge adds to the consternation, and a bah attachment also makes this goat more goaty.
Seriously?
Seriously. And it costs about $58, right? But for an extra $10, you could substitute a horse, a donkey, a tiger, or a camel body. So, but it made me start wondering, you know, I got a lot of questions, like what was his illness? 4 months, that might in those days put you under crushing debt. Grocery clerks didn't make a lot of money, although he was in the union. I guess the big question is, was he leaving his family to provide for themselves, like kind of leaving them high? And he had a wife, 2 kids. Or was he providing for his family by leaving them? Like, did he think, oh, my insurance policy will give them $1,000, $2,000, $3,000? Who knows? So I'm opening it up to speculation.
Hey, I was going to say too, up until 1969 in Omaha, the Woodman of the World Tower was the tallest building in Omaha until 1969.
This is Nebraska girls talking about Woodman of the World, right? So here's the other thing with Woodman of the World is they also then had another 39-story building. I don't know if they added on to it or whatever, but then there was a bank or something that built a 45. So just to give you an idea, 19-story tall building was the tallest building until 1969 or something like that. You know, they kind of slowed down on the goat not sacrifice, but the goat.
There have been no verified goat sacrifices.
That's true. We don't know for sure, do we? So
as satanic as it appears.
and as frat boy as it is, right? You know,
that.
Right. But I think that they saw the writing on the wall and they said, we're getting more kinds of entertainment now. You know, people are watching or listening to radio and watching television. So Woodman of the World, they bought a radio station that had a huge antenna that could broadcast to the Pacific coast and the Atlantic coast. Eventually had a television channel, WOW, right? I think that was CBS channel or something, Carol?
That's right.
Yeah. So WOW was one of our broadcast stations and one of the first places that Johnny Carson worked. So that's what the WOW was from, which I had no idea. Thoughts?
I just know I'm going to start using the phrase goatee or the term. Let's make it happen, you guys. We can get it started. Let's all start using goatee.
So, and I'm sure there were like these kind of things that they did, you know, like, you know, goat signs and secret handshakes, you know.
Secret hoof shakes.
And I mean, a lot of that was, you know, just so they could get together and drink, and who knows what other kind of entertainment besides the sacrifices. I don't know.
It makes the Flintstones even more real, you know, going to the lodge.
That's true. It was totally a lodge for sure.
Most life insurance policies are invalidated when there is a suicide.
You're right.
I know.
Maybe the Woodman of the World, to keep it hush hush about the goat stuff, it's a little too gruesome all around, isn't it?
So am I right? Every time you find out something, it leads to more questions.
Yeah.
Totally. And there is this weird divot in the tub, and I just assumed, I mean, it's at the edge, and I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but I always thought that the builder of this place, he was a contractor, and I always figured that all of this stuff he had kind of purloined from other jobs. Like, I just don't see this much marble being in his budget for this house. He grabbed a tub here, somebody was throwing it out, so who knows what else happened to this tub before Charles came along.
Hey, while we were talking, I looked it up and it said that the Woodman of the World paid at least half, even if it was suicide.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It says this was in the LA Herald was talking about in 1901. They were trying to pass a thing with the Supreme Council, head poobahs or whatever, that they would pay no matter what. And then said this afternoon, the Supreme Camp considered the recommendation that they would, it is expected that the change will be made and that the beneficiaries of suicide may collect the insurance. A compromise was reached on the question of eliminating the suicide clause and that they would pay at least half or whatever.
And
So
what year?
interesting.
What year was that?
1901.
Wow. He probably knew.
Yeah, right. So maybe he figured it out that this was the best way, that like if they were out of money and he was sick and he had no way of working again. I mean, who knows what the illness was? I'm guessing that there's a coroner's report, especially with the suicide. So maybe I'll find out then. But maybe he figured, hey, I've given the WOW a lot of money over the years. This might be a nice payout for them. So
I also agree with you about going to the bathtub as like a gesture of thoughtfulness
and love.
and care in
Yeah.
the process. You could cut your neck open on the kitchen floor or bleed out in the living room, and it would be impossible to clean up and forever. And this is, I mean, he may have loved that bathtub as well.
That's true. Like he chose a final resting place.
Yeah. So yeah, and plus, so then add the insurance policy to that, and yes, you don't commit suicide without a certain level of despair about the future, but not the worst case.
Right.
So, yeah.
The newspaper accounts say that he was despondent. I don't know if that's from health or unemployment or just in general, had a chemical imbalance, had depression ultimately. And, just from looking through all the newspapers, there's actually another Charles Brown that lived at 3382 24th Street that came home about the same time and found his wife with an open jet in the kitchen of gas that, again, feeling despondent. So it's after the Spanish flu epidemic, who knows, what people getting back to work or just feeling as if the world wasn't as friendly to existence, maybe is a way of putting it,
Well, they certainly didn't have as good of medication then either. So
That's true.